Hello everybody. Today we're going to talk about transformations. So we've been working with parabolas, and transformation means moving a parabola side to side, up or down. So we have our parent function. So right now, this parent function right here that I just underlined, that's the basic parabola that we compare every other parabola to. The vertex is always 0, 0. So let's look at number 1. Put a number 1 there. Okay, the vertex is going to be 0, 0. So put a dot at 0, 0. And this graph, this parent function graph, is your basic parabola that looks like this. Okay? So now, if I were to go on to number 2, I see that there's something different in here. There's a parentheses with a -1 and then a squared. So we don't have just x squared like we did last time. So first let's talk a little bit about what that means. If you'll recall, we just finished graphing, and I would have answers that would look like this: x plus 8, x plus 3, or something like that, equals 0. Well, we would always, since they were set equal to 0, what I would always have you do is say x plus 8 equals 0, and so that would mean that x would equal -8. So basically the answer was the opposite sign of whatever was in parentheses. Now this x plus 3, same process. Set it equal to 0. The answer is going to be -3. So again, the answer is the opposite number of what was in parentheses. It's the opposite sign. And it's always going to be like that when you have a parentheses and we're dealing with quadratics. So now I have number 2, y equals the quantity x minus 1 squared. So what this means is that my parabola is no longer going to be at 0, 0. What that means is that my parabola has a -1 affecting it. So right now this -1 is going to change the position of the parabola. And I want to talk to you and tell you that it's going to be the opposite sign of what you see. So right now you see a -1, but we need to move our parabola 1 over. And you say, well, how do I know which way to move it? We're 1 over which direction, up or down, side, left, right? So since we're on the x-axis and there's an x right here, I'm going to move it on the x-axis 1 to the right. So right now, make your dot right there at 1, 0. So that means that my parabola is going to be having a vertex of 1, 0, and the parabola, the shape of it, will just be a normal parabola. So I can just draw it just normal like this, and that's number 2. All right, so let's move on to number 3. In parentheses it says x plus 2 squared. The plus 2 is what's going to move my parabola. And you guessed it, it's going to move not +2, it's going to move the opposite sign. Remember, we just talked about factoring and how when it's in parentheses, it's the opposite sign. So this is going to be 2 to the left. And I'm just, here's my parent function, right? My parent function would look like this. Now let's go and make a blue 2 to the left and just draw just a normal parabola. So what happened is that this +2 shifted my parabola 2 to the left. And you're thinking, oh, but it says plus 2. You cannot forget. It's the opposite sign. So you're going to go 2 to the left. And now my parabola, my parent function, is in red. So let's call that PF. And then in blue is my new parabola that I just graphed in blue. All right, let's go on to the next problem, number 4. Okay, so the parent function would just be a normal parabola just like number 1. Okay, but now we've got this plus 1. Which way do we move? Say it out loud. Okay, and make your vertex at -1 and draw, sorry about that, make your vertex at -1 and draw just a normal parabola with your vertex at -1, 0. Okay, what was the vertex for number 3? -2, 0. Good. Let's move on to the next problem. All right, here we go. So right now, I've got a -4 inside. This means that I'm going to move 4 to the right, +4. So my vertex is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Make a dot on the x-axis, 4, 0, and just draw your parabola. However, my vertex is going to be 4, 0. Good. All right, number 6. Well, there's a +3 in parentheses. It's going to be the opposite sign. So my vertex will be at -3, 0, which is here. And just draw a normal parabola the best you can. All right, so let's do a little recap. The graphs above have the form y equals the quantity x minus h squared. Determine how the graph of y equals x squared changes for the other graphs. Well, you'll notice that once we have a number after x, it's going to shift it from left or right depending on the number. And if it's plus sign in the middle, it's going to go negative. If there's a minus sign in the parentheses, it's going to go positive. The sign is different than it looks when you have numbers inside the parentheses. Here's our question. What happens to the graph as the h changes value? Along which axis does this change occur? So go ahead and spend a second thinking and coming up with your answer. How does x change? Which axis does the change occur? You should be writing right now. Okay, so my answer, something that I think would be that h moves left or right. Let me just put RIG. Along which axis does this change occur? It occurs along the x-axis. Depending on the number means I go 2 to the right, 3 to the left, or 1 to the left. Okay, turn the page over. Okay, so we are now on the back side, and we can do this one. This one is our parent function. Our parent function always has a vertex of 0, 0. So just make your parabola, and it can just be a normal shaped parabola, the best you can. All right, so now all right. You've got to be patient. I'm trying to figure this out on my own. All right, here we go. All right, so we're on the next one. What I've got now is this x squared plus 2. There is no parentheses, which means that this 2 is going to go along the y axis. We call this 2 the k. Vertex form is h comma k. An h stands for the number that's in parentheses, and the k stands for the number that's not in parentheses, that's at the end of the equation. Well, on this specific problem, we don't have a parentheses, which means that my x is going to be 0, but my k, now here it is, the number plus 2, this is not in parentheses, so we're going to take it as it is. It's a positive 2, and it's on the k. Remember how I do this? A lot of times I'll say, look, first number is left or right. Sorry about that. Second number is up or down. So that means that this 0, let me erase this real quick. The 0 is going to stand for my h, but my k is going to be 2. This 2 right here is my k. That means that I'm going to go on my y-axis to 2, just like that. And draw your parabola. All right, so right now I've got x squared minus 3. There is no parentheses. You're going to take the negative 3 as you see it. We're not changing the sign. This is our k. There's nothing in parentheses. Our h is 0. Our k is going to be this negative 3. There's my vertex. Since nothing's in parentheses, I am not going to move at all left or right. I'm only going to move negative 3 down. So make your dot and negative 3. And your parabola is just now, oh, that's negative 2. Let's erase it. Boop, 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 boop. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, negative 3. Let's do it right this time, huh? All right, so there's my vertex of my parabola, and the shape is just going to be your shape, just your normal. No, not too skinny, not too fat. All right, here we go. So this, just a normal x squared and a positive 1. So let's try it out. What do you think the vertex is going to be? Try it on your own. Did you put a 0 for x because there's nothing in parentheses? Yay! All right, plus 1, just as we see it. We're not changing the sign because it's our k. It's at the end of the equation, and it's a positive 1. So make your dot there. Make your vertex just average, nothing exciting. Let's go to the next problem. Let me do a little bit of erasing here. Okay. All right, now, next problem. So, again, there's nothing in parentheses. That means that my h is going to be nothing, 0. But my k, however, it is going to be, boop, boop, you got it, negative 4. Good job. go down 4 from your origin. Okay. Your parabola is just going to be all right, last one. So try this on your own. Go ahead, I'll give you 10 seconds. Sorry, those are my kids. All right, so your vertex, 0, -1. Make your dot for your vertex, make your parabola just normal, and you're done. All right, final question to wrap it up. The graphs have a form y equals x squared plus k. Determine how the graph of y equals x squared changes for the other graphs. What happens to the graph as k changes value? Along which axis does this change occur? So, out loud, which axis does this k action happen? Y-axis. And here's why. H, which is the number in parentheses that we saw on the front side of the worksheet, and K is the number at the very end of the equation on the y-axis. Awesome. Great job. All right, let's start on the classwork. All right, so here's what we're going to work on during class. This is a two-sided worksheet. So you're going to need graph paper, and we know how to find the axis of symmetry. We learned it in a previous lesson. Just a little recap. If I'm given a graph, and I have a parabola, so just let's say that here's my vertex, 3, 0, and there's my parabola. The axis of symmetry is always the first number in the ordered pair, and axis of symmetry itself means where is the line that cuts the parabola straight in half so that it's symmetrical. This dotted line right here is called the axis of symmetry. It is x equals 3. My axis of symmetry is at 3. So now back to our homework. The vertex is based on, remember, h and k. So let's talk about that again. H is going to be the number in parentheses. All right, so my h is going to be the number that I move right or left. And remember, it's opposite of the sign that you see. And the k is where you move up or down. All right, so go ahead and get started.